everyone. We're really excited to have Dr. Michael Eric Dyson with us today, who's going to be talking with us about his new book, A Long Time Coming. I have it right here, Reckoning Race in America. Really excited. I'm hearing an echo for some reason. First, I want to thank everyone who helped to make this program possible. First, Emily Dunkley, our program coordinator for organizing the logistics of all of this. Emily helps us keep everything going at the Center for the Study of Race and Democracy. My name's Peniel Joseph. I'm the Barbara Jordan Chair in Political Values and Ethics here at the LBJ School of Public Affairs and in the Department of History, and where I serve as the founding director of the Center for the Study of Race and Democracy. Thanks to Dean David Springer, the interim Dean of the LBJ School of Public Affairs. Thanks to Victoria Yu, our communications, one of our communications chiefs, and really everyone who made this possible. Thanks to Jeannie and Mickey Klein for helping to sponsor the William C. Powers speaker series. William C. Powers was former president of University of Texas at Austin, and really one of the biggest champions of racial diversity that we've seen here in the state of Texas and in the history of University of Texas at Austin. It's under his watch that we get the Division of Diversity and Community Engagement, DDCE, the largest such division and an institution of higher education in the United States. So we really continue to bring passionate and profound and learned speakers who really can extol and exemplify President Powers' commitment to diversity and to social justice. Without further ado, I want to introduce Dr. Michael Eric Dyson. Doc, can we put, Emily, can we put his screen up? His screen is black still. All right, there he is, the man himself. I'm going to read a short introduction, but then expound a little bit more. Dr. Michael Eric Dyson is Distinguished University Professor of African American and Diaspora Studies, College of Arts and Sciences and Ethics and Society, Divinity School, and Centennial Professor at Vanderbilt University. Dr. Dyson is one of America's premier public intellectuals and the author of 7 New York Times bestsellers. He's also a contributing opinion writer for the New York Times. Dr. Dyson is a recipient of 2 NAACP Image Awards and the 2020 Langston Hughes Festival Medallion. Former President Barack Obama has noted, everybody who speaks after Michael Eric Dyson pales in comparison, right? I wanna really say how fortunate I feel to know and to have been mentored by and to be what I consider an intellectual colleague and friend of Dr. Michael Eric Dyson. He's written and edited well over 20 books. I've got the Michael Eric Dyson reader behind me over here. And what's so extraordinary is that Dr. Dyson over the last, close to 3 decades has really been not only one of the most prolific scholars of African-American history and race, but really one of the most erudite interlocutors and public intellectuals. He's an ordained Baptist minister and reverend on issues of intersectional justice. He's a compassionate thinker. He's an erudite thinker. He's a brilliant writer, but he's remained intellectually curious. He remains at the archive. He remains reading really hundreds and thousands of secondary books and articles per year. He remains an indefatigable writer, and he remains really an indefatigable scholar activist in the best tradition of people like Ida B. Wells and the people like W.E.B. Du Bois and the Frederick Douglasses, who Lorraine Hansberry, who really let us see examples and exemplars of Black genius. And he understands highbrow culture and folk culture as well, in the best tradition of Zora Neale Hurston, right? Where she said, "Not all of my skin folk are my kinfolk," right? So he understands all of that. And I think what's so extraordinary about Dr. Dyson is that way before hip hop became something considered mainstream, where we have Jay-Z can hang out with Barack Obama, where we have the New York Times embracing Drake and Jay-Z and these other folks. Dr. Dyson was a profound champion of hip hop culture and vernacular. He's a great rhyme connoisseur in his own right. Right. And so he brought so many different strands of Black intellectual life together. He's a Detroit native. He's a Baptist preacher. He's a sports aficionado who personally knows LeBron James and knew the late Kobe Bryant. I've had the chance to, go to a basketball game, and Dr. Dyson was just sort of the mayor of the city that we were in, where everybody knew who he was, from people who were really, unfortunately, homeless to really the owners of the team knew who Dr. Dyson was. And it really says something profound about the way in which he exists in that prophetic Black tradition, that social gospel tradition of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., of Reverend Raphael Warnock, but he also exists in that Black organizing and grassroots tradition of people like Stacey Abrams, right? People like Malcolm X, people who are willing to speak truth to power. And he brings that all together in really transcendent and panoramic ways. This latest book, long time coming, Reckoning with Race in America, is really a masterpiece. It's brief enough to read, but so powerful, so well written. It's really an intellectual tour de force about the times we live in and providing us a historical context to really understand what we mean by anti-racism in the United States and globally, right? So, without further ado, I'm really, really so pleased and proud and honored to introduce my friend, my brother, my mentor, Dr. Michael Eric Dyson.
Wow, how great, how wonderful, how gracious, and how generous of the Reverend Dr. Professor Peniel Joseph, the Haitian sensation, to with that mega kilowatt smile, that radiant brilliance, and that beatific vision pasted perennially on his face and his visage, to have that beautiful a soul and beautiful a man and beautiful a brother and beautiful a writer, beautiful a scholar, to say such gracious and generous things. I'm grateful indeed to him for this honor of hanging out at UT Austin in the Barbara Jordan, Center, and hanging out with him and all the great work that he does. Just to rub up against him and to associate myself with him does me great honor. So I'm extremely gratified to be here, honored to be here today for such a remarkable scholar. And all I got to say about him is it takes one to know one. And with that original archival research, he's already on to the next book after dropping classic after classic. He's just like Jay-Z. It's time to give the winter some. I gave the summer some. So he's just constantly in motion, writing extraordinary books with haunting eloquence and precise scholarship, and illuminating intellectual vistas opening before us. And every time you read one of his books, and I go back and reread them, it's like listening to a Nas or a Jay-Z or a Lauryn Hill. You just keep listening to it over and over again because you discover new stuff over and over again. And he has been my teacher so often, especially when it comes to the historical framework of Black freedom struggles in regard to Black nationalists and, Black national struggle and Black self-determination. I've learned so much from him, shed some of my earlier biases and prejudices, and then, began to see the broader perspective of what's going on. I know if that's true for me, it's got to be true for a lot of other people as well. So this is just a, recruitment video for him to come to Vanderbilt. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't say that out loud. I'm just playing right now. He's running stuff at UT Austin. I don't want Sister Emily, to be all upset. I'm just telling the truth. I'm just joking. So He is a mainstay at UT Austin as much as LeBron was in Cleveland. So what's interesting, look, he came back. LeBron came back. What you mad at? He brought you a championship. Stop being mad. Stop burning his jersey. Lakers. But no, it's a real honor to be here today. So I just want to say a few words. I'm really more interested in having a conversation with you and hearing you talk about my book. I'm going to be real. So I'm going to talk about 20 minutes. I ain't going to talk no longer because y'all here to see Peniel Joseph. I ain't mad at you. So I'm going to talk a little bit and then we're going to engage in conversation because even his engagement is elucidatory and it is illustrative of so many historical facts. He packs more facts into a short amount of space than any other historian that I know. So I'm honored to be here today to talk about this book. Long time coming, Reckoning with Race in America. And as you all know, I pinched that phrase from the song of Sam Cooke. It's been a long, long time coming, but I know change gonna come. Oh, yes, it is. And I'm sure some of y'all have seen One Night in Miami. I'm interested to hear what Dr. Peniel Joseph thinks about that because it was pretty extraordinary. And my man, Leslie Odom, killing the Sam. It's been a long, long time coming, but I know change gonna come. Oh, yes, it will. So change gonna come, but it's been a long time coming. Building up to that change is the long time, the historical backdrop. So even Sam Cooke is urging us in a historic, he's kind of a Herodotus in black skin, Herodotus in black skin. He's a historical figure talking about history, the long sweep of history that gathered itself into the change that would be presented. We know that Barack Obama, and I was there in Grant Park in the audience while he was on stage saying that, you know, change has come. So he was the fulfillment of this Sam Cooke's prognostication, his prophecy in one sense. And so I wanted to take off on that. And then on the biblical notion of God reckoning with human history, that there was a reckoning that would occur. And so I wanted to join the long time that it took for us to reckon with race in America. I decided to write this book as a series of letters to fallen martyrs. I didn't want to just talk about them. I wanted to speak to them. And before you think I'm Shirley MacLaine on the scholarly tip and trying to channel, you know, the spirits of those who have gone ahead of us, there is, however, a durable history and tradition of engaging the ancestors, of asking for permission to speak, to write, to think, to talk about what we talk about. And so in that sense, I wanted to speak for the most part to recently arrived ancestors. I say for the most part because there was an exception with Emmett Till. So I opened my book speaking to Elijah McClain, the young black man who was murdered by cops, killed by cops outside of Denver, Colorado, 23 years old, year before last. And then, you know, to talk about Emmett Till as I address a chapter to him, Elijah McClain, I'm talking about the golden orb because one of his co-workers said it was like a golden orb surrounded him whenever he walked, whenever he appeared. He was such a sweet man, arguably on the spectrum according to some, but a man who played his violin for pigeons and birds and animals to soothe them. And a young man who was a, you know, in the medical field as a massage therapist, relieving people's hurt and pain and drama. And yet on that night, wearing a blown mask, this is before COVID, because he was also anemic and he would get cold often. And they mistreated him and mishandled him. And the reason I began there is because Elijah McClain exemplifies what we might think about in terms of respectability politics. That is, we have to prove to the people who are harming us why we are deserving of humane treatment. And the paradox always in the politics of respectability, which have their legitimate defenders, is the fact that we're trying to show our humanity to people who have denied our humanity. We're trying to show that we are humane and intelligent to people who deny our humanity and intelligence, who disbelieve our fundamental capacity to be human in this culture, and who are constantly and consistently trying to resist that. And so the paradox of respectability politics is that we're trying to prove we're worthy enough, we're smart enough, we're moral enough, we're ethical enough, we're highbrow enough, we are intelligent enough, we are deeply and profoundly engaged with the better elements of our nature, the higher angels of our nature, that all of that to people who have erected societies, laws, jurisprudence, practices, social justice or injustice systems, and entire worldviews arrayed against the very assertion of our fundamental intelligence and humanity. And when you hear him back and forth, I wouldn't hurt a fly. I don't even eat meat. I'm a vegetarian. Not that I'm judging people who are. Look at, in his own words, the spiritual fight, the fraught condition of Black people trying to convince people not to hurt us, not to misjudge us, not to mistreat us, not to do wrong and damage to us for no good reason. And so I wanted to begin there. And then in the chapter on Black Death, where I speak at length about Ahmaud Arbery, I talk to Emmett Till. Emmett Till, who had his life snatched from him at 14 years old. And I speak about the politics of Black death and the pursuit by vigilantes of Black people, the white supremacy that prevails, the reversion back to a kind of slave-like cultural status. The slavocracy asserts itself with lethal intensity. And I speak about the vengeful pursuit of Black life and the haunting of Black life by white vigilantes who give themselves permission, who legitimize, who deputize themselves as agents of the state to hunt down and to murder a completely innocent Black man for the crime of his Blackness, for the crime of his curiosity, looking in a home, as hundreds of other white people no doubt did. We have on tape white people going into the same startup, into the same structure that was being built into a home, curious about it. They were not pursued. They were not seen as criminals. They were not seen as thugs. They were not seen as out of place. And so it's the physical embodiment of Black bodies that are seen as out of place, the literal displacement of Black people, the portable, peripatetic out of placeness of Blackness, portable in the sense that it travels with us. No matter where we are, we seem to be out of place. You know, no matter what we do physically, out of place. Curiosity that is Black is criminalized. Curiosity that is white is rewarded. And so I wanted to talk to Emmett Till. I didn't want to simply talk about these people. I wanted to speak to them in a kind of spiritual sense, in a kind of ancestral sense, to derive wisdom, to derive encouragement and power as we grapple with the hideous and the vicious repudiation of our fundamental humanity in so many guises. And then I talk not only to Emmett Till and to Ahmaud Arbery, but I also speak to Eric Garner and George Floyd. And if I'm talking about Black death with Emmett Till and Ahmaud Arbery, I'm speaking about the Blue Plague with Mr. Garner and Mr. Floyd. And I'm sure many of you are watching now the trial of Derek Chauvin. It is not the trial of George Floyd, though today in particular, as many other days, the defense is trying to try George Floyd, because we are constantly on trial. We are constantly in a Kafkaesque situation where the trial is turned against us in absurd positions. It's a kind of Camusian refusal of our humanity. It's a Sartrean reversal. The ontology of Blackness is constantly subject to the lunacy of white supremacy, which is its own form of irrational and mentally charged, unhealthy perspectives about Black life, among others. And so when we have Mr. Garner and we see Mr. Floyd in the parallel 7 years apart, I believe, we literally saw that film before. When we saw George Floyd, we've literally seen this film before of a big Black man. And we can take measure of Mr. Garner because we saw him standing up. Mr. Floyd, many of us were introduced to him prone, prostrate, on the ground, beneath the knee of a policeman, but really 3 knees. And if both knees were, the knees of 3 cops, one on his torso, Mr. King, former Officer King, and former Officer Lane on his legs, and Derek Chauvin on his neck. And so here was a man laying prostrate on the ground, and George Floyd begging for his life. The knees of an indifferent cop boring into his already mortally depressed column. And so in that chapter on Blue Plague, I wrestle with what happens when police people continually and routinely and systematically disregard our humanity and disregard the fundamental proposition that our lives matter, that we are worthy of life, of breath, of support, that we should not be subject to arbitrary forms of police terror that tyrannize many Black communities and focus on Black bodies with deadly seriousness and consequence. And so I speak about police brutality, police misconduct. I talk about the ways in which Black people are constantly subject to criminal forms of systemic oppression at the hands of police, and the constant replication of an ethos and ethic of destruction and mayhem that are unleashed on vulnerable Black bodies. Why did it make a big difference in this case? Why did George Floyd's case blow up internationally? I think it is because of the pandemic we are in, a dual pandemic, or as the Reverend Marcia Dyson said, a tridemic. We could even say quadruple pandemic, but her notion of tridemic is race, virus, and of course, gender, and we can throw in class as well. And so we were at home already on our, on our telephones, on our televisions, on our devices, on our iPads and iPods, perhaps even looking and listening, seeing what was going on, especially on the multiple screens we occupy. Here we were 2 weeks before the pandemic. Many older people were chastising younger people about being addicted to social media and addicted to these screens that somehow intervened on our humane interaction with each other, the intimacies, the rituals of sustenance that we generate when we talk to each other in person with a sense of love and appreciation. And yet here we are now dependent upon these very screens to mediate a conception of community and intimacy. We talk to our doctors, we talk to our lawyers, we speak to our teachers, we have classes. Some of us speak to our loved ones, and for some of us, the trauma and tragedy of saying goodbye on these devices to our loved ones is real as well. Or talking to our physicians or our therapist, or even going to church or a religious ceremony, or attending the the funerals or the weddings of our beloved and friend and kin. And so we were at home because of COVID. We saw what happened. We were more vulnerable to its emotional as well as its systemic impact upon us. Systemic in the sense that it forced us to come to grips with all the asterisks being removed. He wasn't running from the cops. He wasn't cussing the cops out. He wasn't being belligerent. He wasn't trying to escape by beating them up. Here was a man on the ground laying prostrate as he was being assaulted by the police. And the explosion of social resistance at that level, quite remarkable. And so hundreds of thousands of people around the globe began to rise up in resistance to police misconduct, calling for the revision, the reformation, and in some instances, the eradication, or at least the evisceration of the police power of a community of cops who have seen themselves as somehow invulnerable, and because of legal protections offered, especially by qualified immunity, feeling that they were somehow incapable of being held to account by the state, because it is for the state and in the name of the state that they have committed mayhem, misconduct, and misbehavior that warrants a serious repudiation of their charge to be violent and to deploy that violence against vulnerable Black, brown, red, and Asian brothers and sisters in this culture, poor white people as well, and to hold them to account for their particular sins and offenses. But then, and we'll talk more about that with Dr. Joseph, but also, and I'll hurry on here not to hold you too long, but then I talked to, Breonna Taylor in white theft, the ways in which her life was stolen from her, again by cops, but the way in which historically Black life has been stolen, extracted from our resting place in Africa and brought here against our will. 16, 19, 20 and some odd Negroes who were brought here, as it was said. We know that there were Black people here even before then, but 1619 is totemic and an avatar of and a symbol of and representative of the degree to which the Atlantic slave trade permeated the offices of every institution of American society and systemically integrated itself with the customs, habits, mores, folkways, traditions, and outlooks and perspectives of American society. And so I grapple with the thievery of Black life, the thievery of Black time, the thievery, the theft of Black self-determination. And yet we rose up against that. We resisted that. The Supreme Court in 1857 through Roger B. Taney, the Chief Justice, says that Black people have no rights that white people are bound to respect. That was written into the law. So from the very beginning, the institutional mechanisms and matrices, the systemic practices that reproduce the pathology of social injustice have been present. And I addressed that through the life and the death of Breonna Taylor. And then I also addressed Hadia Pendleton to speak about cancel culture, and to me, the misled attempt to deploy cancel culture to arrive at justice. I understand why in the legal and jurisprudential rationality of American society and the criminal justice system that we are often denied justice. But we have also gained rights in those very courts through Thurgood Marshall and through Charles Hamilton and through Constance Baker Motley and Patricia Harris and Johnny Cochran and Benjamin Crump and so on. So even though it's rickety and broken down, I'd rather take my chances on a criminal justice system that is deeply and profoundly fraught and flawed than with a system of arbitrary assignment of value or of devaluation, often deployed horizontally by Black people against other Black people. I was there when Whitney Houston was canceled. Then they had to uncancel her because they canceled her because they thought she wasn't black enough and didn't sing black enough. Then when they discovered she was blacker than black, blackety black, black, then they had to uncancel her. Why cancel people at all? I don't mean cancel culture in the way the right wing is speaking about it, being held to account for their invidious and often racist practices, their sexist practices, and the horrendous mistreatment of vulnerable peoples. I'm talking about cancel culture in the degree and extent to which we deploy social media to harm and hurt and leverage our practices as a digital lynch mob against vulnerable peoples who don't have a capacity to respond often. And when they do, even if they're powerful people with the ability to respond, there is no acknowledgement that there are two sides to a story, that we must take into account the complexity and nuance of a particular situation in order to arrive at our sense of justice. Martin Luther King Jr. didn't try to cancel Bull Connor. He tried to cancel white supremacy. And he didn't go to his particular enemies or opponents' homes to try to devastate them. He tried to eradicate a system. Because if you just get rid of Bull Connor, the next white racist sheriff would step up, deal with systems that replicate and reproduce pathological consequences and unjust circumstances. And then I also wrote a letter to Sandra Bland about white comfort. The Hadia Pendleton was about dealing with, the kind of cancel culture that we have and the resistance to understanding, seeing red, the kind of anger and hostility that can be ginned up and ratcheted up with cancel culture. But then with Sandra Bland, I talked about white comfort and how we've got to challenge white comfort. And white comfort, as Tracy Ellis Ross said, has been the reason for so much Black death, that to make white folk comfortable in their ignorance and their refusal to acknowledge our humanity, collectively speaking. I don't talk about individual white brothers and sisters who have made tremendous strides and changes, but we're speaking about the collective enterprise of white ignorance and white refusal to acknowledge the fundamental privileges that attain to whiteness and the white comfort that is held at all costs against the onslaught of the incursion against that ignorance, against that amnesia, against that refusal to know our lives, by dealing with the discomfort and the uncomfortable realities and truths that are unleashed when we grapple with racial justice and racial history and racial inequality in this nation. And then finally, a letter to the Reverend Clemente Pinckney, named after the great Roberto Clemente by his mother, the Puerto Rican sensation, Black man, right? Black Puerto Rican, brown skin, not quite as handsome and beautiful as Peniel Joseph, but almost, with that same kind of smile. 3,000 hits. He hit his 3,000th hit at his last at bat before he died on a plane, relieving the suffering of Nicaragua, right? Because he was a humanitarian. 3,000 hits, Golden Gloves, a tremendous, tremendous human being. And his mother named the Reverend Clemente Pinckney, didn't spell it the same way. You know how Black people do. Didn't spell it the same way, but pronounced it the same way. And Reverend Clemente Pinckney in Evergreen Hope, right? Each chapter is named after a color that tries to key a serious consideration of a philosophical, epistemological, we can use a big word there, that talks about the way in which knowledge is distributed. Well, why didn't you use it? Because I'm trying to hip you to some new words so that if somebody be on the elevator talking about epistemology, you know what they're talking about. If they talking about epistemic authority, if they're talking about epistemic shifts, as Althusser spoke about it, I'm trying to put you on game. You ain't mad when Snoop Dogg give you new words. Why you mad when I'm giving you new words? For shizzle my nizzle, my bizzle. So that's why I be doing it. I am unapologetic and god darn defensive about using scholarship, not obscurantism. I'm not talking about deploying, jargon, even though if a lawyer is helping you, you don't mind no lawyer using no jargon. Habeas corpus, derelicta. Use all them Latin words to hook me up, dog. Get me off the case. because they got a brother out here hurt. So use them words, Latin words. Subspecie eternitatis. You ain't bad. Latissimus dorsi, pectoralis major, gluteus maximus. Save my gluteus maximus. But anyway, so here it is, right? In terms of, Reverend Clemente Pinckney, a minister, a politician, and I wanted to talk about evergreen hope, the perennial preoccupation with possibility that is the obsession of Black culture. I know we talk about pessimism, and I'm down, but look, I understand Frank Wilderson, I understand Afro-pessimism and the like, but I can't lie to you. I'm just a Black old hope man. I'm just and they've done studies that says I've seen these empirical studies that substantiate the claim that having a sense of hope may even make you more vulnerable, because here you are hoping for an outcome and then it turns out the way you didn't think it was supposed to come, and then you mad. Well, that's optimism. Hope to me says, even against the evidence, I'm gonna hold on, right? Howard Thurman, the great mystic, said that we are either gonna be a prisoner of the event we confront, or we're gonna be a prisoner of hope. Because he said our slave foreparents, who had less reason to hope than them? They ain't seen no consequence. What did he say? The long rows of cotton, the rawhide whip of the overseer. Now, I know you thought Martin Luther King Jr. said it, but he was sampling Howard Thurman. I'm just trying to get credit where credit is due. I'm just trying to tell you, you thought that it was Biggie, but it was really the Isley Brothers in between the sheets. I'm just letting you know where the song came from. I love it when they call me Big Papa. And if you don't know, now you know. I used to fuss when the landlord dissed us. No heat. I'm just telling you, it was the Isleys putting the soundtrack down. You saw Ron with the beard. I'm just trying to get my Ron Isley on. I don't see nothing wrong. Come on. Isley was killing them there. But here they are, right? Philip Bailey, give him love too on the verses. Philip Bailey and Ron Isley married to sisters. Come on now. Old Black men got game y'all don't even know about. It ain't the NBA. But anyway, back to the point. So Reverend Clemente Pinckney was a tremendous social justice advocate, died in that church, as you know, when that white bigot came in and murdered him and 8 other members, 9 folk that night. And yet the perennial hope in which he was ensconced. Howard Thurman said, be a prisoner of the event that you confront, or a prisoner of hope, because our slave foreparents had no reason to hope, and yet they embraced it. So I'm not against Afro-pessimism. I think that there are many, there are many ways in which it has utility in Black community, the kind of skepticism. But at the same time, when it comes to like the vaccine, get the Black scene. I don't want to see Black people going down. I want to see Black people rising up. We have reason to be skeptical, but Black people ain't afraid of science. We're afraid of scientists. We ain't afraid of medicine. We're afraid of doctors, right? We believe in medicine. I got to go get my medicine. Watch out now. And we got self-administered medicine, right? Self-medication goes on. The point is, though, that the deployment of the medical establishment against the interests of Black people, Tuskegee, we know about that, right? For 40 years. We also know about what? Harriet Lacks, harvesting of her immortal cells to create an infrastructure of millions and millions of dollars, except to her family, and for the medical benefit of communities without her consent, right? So we are skeptical, not about science, but about scientists, right? The same sun that melts wax hardens clay. It ain't the sun, it's the material it's acting on. It's not doctor, right? It's not the medicine. Because if you go to the doctor and you got a hangnail, you want some medicine, you want some Advil, you want some opioids. Don't get addicted now. You want somebody to help you out. But the point is that we, at the end of the day, have to understand the perennial hopefulness that has animated Black people at our best, while acknowledging the necessity of an Afro-pessimistic viewpoint that can also chasten the uncritical embrace of an optimism that may be unwarranted. So that's the book. That's what I talk about. That's what I do. And I'm glad to talk to the Reverend Dr. Professor Peniel Joseph a bit more about it. Thank you all so very kindly.
Thank you, Dr. Dyson. Thank you. Thank you so much. It's a tour de force, the book, just like your talk. I want to start with really the notion of white theft, because in that letter, which is to Breonna Taylor, you talk about a concept that I thought was really brilliant that I want you to unpack, the black next versus the white again. And it's really a paradigmatic concept. And I found myself reading this chapter and just nodding my head, the way in which you placed really the trials that Black folks face. But really, at the heart of this book, this is a book about race and democracy, and this idea of the white again versus the black next that we even see right now. We think about Georgia and the voter suppression bill, and we see Mellody Hobson, the great Mellody Hobson, and Ken Chenault, and these Black business leaders, Robert F. Smith here, 72, Clarence Otis, who I know and admire, wrote a letter that was in the New York Times on March 31st that really forced corporate America to visibly support justice, right? So Coca-Cola, Delta, Jamie Dimon, CEO of JP Morgan Chase, these folks weren't saying nothing about the voter suppression. And like the letter points out, this is a long history. It's sort of that white again versus the black next. And over 60 corporations had spoken out in 2016-17 against the bathroom bills that were anti-transgender and anti-LGBTQ. And not one white major corporation had spoken out against over 250 bills in 43 states that were basically Jim Crow bills. These are Reconstruction era white supremacist, white redemption era bills, right? So let's talk about that white again versus the black next. And Breonna Taylor, and even you've talked very well about the WNBA and what they've done with voting rights. Stacey Abrams. So often Black women, this isn't saying anything bad about Black men, but Black women personify that black next, including Reverend Marcia Dyson, that black next of that intersectional, that Kimberly Crenshaw, but Audre Lorde, Barbara Smith, No Name, Megan Thee Stallion, right? They're talking about that black next as well. So it's not just the high-flown, highfalutin, ebony and ivory intellectuals. It's at the level of the beauty shop too, right? Not just the barber shop, right?
Right. See, this is why I love talking to Peniel Joseph, because he break down what I be saying and then make me understand it better. Absolutely. That's exactly what I'm talking about. What he said. That's what I'm gonna take him on the road with me. What he just said. And I was trying to, given your beautiful summary and really recapitulation in a far more eloquent fashion than I stated it originally. But it is that tension because the perennial preoccupation with Black people is next, right? You stole spirituals, we got blues. You stole the blues, we got jazz. You stole jazz, we got R&B. You stole R&B, we got rock and roll. You stole rock and roll, we got funk. You stole funk, we got hip hop. You ain't stole that though. You ain't stole hip hop. You don't stole a lot, but you ain't stole that. Right? You ain't stole that because the beats are so insane. The rhythms, just like, and they ain't stole really none of the other stuff I said, but they've appropriated it in ways. Maybe the blues. They could argue, a lot more white folk listen to the blues than Black people, even though we still got the blues. We just ain't got the blues. So the thing is that it's the next thing. You steal something from it, we come up with the next thing. You steal something, we come up with the next thing. You block our one way, we come up with the next way. Here's the next installment of trying to overcome white opposition, white resistance, the next strategy, the next insight, the next illumination, the next knowledge, the next port of call, so to speak, along the vast movement toward freedom and justice and equality. And so we're constantly doing with the next thing. You put up opposition to it, we come up with the next thing. Oh, dang, I didn't know they had that. Oh, man, Michael Jordan, you're getting old. Kobe Bryant, you're falling back, you fading away. Oh, my God, what's the next thing you're going to do? Oh, you got a three-pointer too? Oh, what's the next thing you're going to do? So we do both individually and collectively. We are generating the next thing to improvise in the face of opposition. Right? To be able to, as Claude Levi-Strauss talked about, that improvisational ethic in the French term, that was a way of us trying to, engage in serious reproduction of possibility over space and time and coming at you, versus the white next, the white again. White people don't. We want the same thing. We don't want no freedom. First we had enslavement, right? How can we do that again? Oh, let's have Jim Crow. Well, how can we do that again? Oh, let's have voter suppression. Oh, how can we do that again? They own the same tip. Yeah. They Johnny One-Noters. They want the same thing. Now, we own the same tip too, freedom, but we're thrusting and parrying. We're trying to come up with all the stuff you throwing at us. We come at it, which is why it's amazing to me when white folk get bent out of shape, collectively speaking. I'm talking about white brothers and sisters, about, well, what is this thing about affirmative action, but more especially about reparations? Won't you be as ingenious at coming up with reparations as you were for denying us our rights? Yeah. We know y'all got intelligence. We know y'all got imagination. You were coming up with, hey, let's figure out how many jelly beans are in the bag to make them guess in order to let them vote. Y'all came with all kind of perverse, imaginative stuff. Be as imaginative. When you go, hey, I can't imagine what reparations will look like. Tell you what, go to the Ku Klux Klan and ask them, hey, come up with some stuff. Say you were for reparations. How would you figure this out? You come up with the radical forensic ingenuity of white supremacist thought that was thinking of new ways to hurt and harm us. Use that for the good. And white brothers and sisters who claim not to be associated with that, then use your imagination. Stop going, I don't know. That's like when people come tell me, I'm now converted, Dr. Dyson. I'm now on Jesus' side. Yeah, but you gave the devil the best beats. Why you coming with the whack-ish? Won't you come with some bad beats on Jesus' side? Every time these people get converted, it'd be like, why you whack? Come with the hot stuff. Lil Nas X. But anyway, so the point is, y'all made Lil Nas X. Lil Nas X says, let me see, you say I'm gay and I'm going to hell, so I'm gonna force you to confront the kind of theological blowback of me embracing my hellish position, because that's where you say you going. All right. So why y'all mad at a dude who is embracing what you said was the case and put a little blood on the shoes? Man, he challenging y'all. The blood of Jesus? No. But you denied him the blood of Jesus. So why you mad at him talking about the blood of Satan? Either you're saying the blood of Jesus is available for everybody, or it ain't available for nobody. But anyway, I digress. Please forgive that. That was not part of UT Austin. They are they are secular. As Black people say, they're circular. They're circular. We don't believe in religious stuff. It's circular, because there is a petitio principi, arguing in a circle, the Latin word for circular argument. But anyway, back to the point. The point is this, is that the white, again, is about reasserting the hegemony and dominance of white supremacist discourse, rhetoric, and thinking to keep Black people down and to arrest the development of Black freedom struggle, whereas the Black next is constantly looking for the creative way to thrust and parry with the white supremacist thinking out there. White folk want to hold on to it. That's why Make America Great Again is part of that white again.
And I want to dovetail, Dr. Dyson, and talk about really what you say here, somewhat controversially, about cancel culture. And I want you, because people are all talking about cancel culture. In fact, one question that I had for you that really transitions us from the white again and Black next into cancel culture is what recently happened on the Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon. You've been on Tonight, you've been on all these things, James Corden, all these folks, but where there was a white influencer who basically did all these Black moves, right? These Black dance moves from TikTok, right? And people were getting upset about Jimmy Fallon, and even some, sort of the idea of like, should we boycott Jimmy Fallon? I don't know if you think of boycott as cancel, but that connects with what you're saying about the systemic problems we face, because Jimmy Fallon is not going to be, we need Black folks on late night television. We need Black executives on late night television. We need Black showrunners and bookers on late night television. And we need that on cable news. We need that all across the board. So I want you to give us your definition of cancel culture. And you said in your talk that you don't mean cancel culture in the way the right wing does. The right wing has been using any efforts to hold racists accountable and hold sexist or misogynist or homophobes or transphobes accountable as this idea of counter cancel culture. So on some levels, cancel culture has become the new political correctness, the new, and just like you have white racists talking about woke thugs, you saw the racist tweet of Mike Huckabee saying he's going to identify as Chinese at this very moment of anti-Asian and Pacific Islander violence. So explain to us, what do you mean? How do you define cancel culture? And why do you want us to, why do you think it especially could be injurious for Black people and brown people and people of color like you write about in Long Time Coming?
Yes, sir. And thank you for making that distinction. And let me say it again. I ain't talking about what Donald Trump and them be talking about when I'm talking about cancel culture. When they say cancel culture, they, like you said, they don't want to be held accountable. They just want to continue to be racist the way they were racist before. It's like when they came up with, well, on both instances, Black people came up with the stuff and the left did. The left came up with political correctness, then it got used by the right. Black people came up with cancel culture, and now everybody talking about it and stuff. And so for me, which is a misnomer, it's based on Black Twitter. I ain't seeing y'all get no checks from Twitter, so I don't know how Black the Twitter is, right? Jack ain't giving none of y'all no shares. Last time I checked. Now he bought Jay-Z's, company for $289 million. Jay-Z might could talk about that, but ain't nobody else got no dough from him. So it ain't really Black Twitter. We are house sitting in the larger structure of white corporate and, media consciousness, but you in the basement, homie, you ain't really owning the crib. You ain't paying for the lease. It ain't your crib and they can put you out. You just squatting. But anyway, I digress. Here's my point. I believe in justice. I believe in holding people accountable. I believe, look, and I know that the right wing and Mike Huckabee and all this are misusing and misappropriating the term cancel culture, like they're misappropriating the term wokeness, right? Woke thugs and all that. That's because you're so addicted to sleep. To wake up is hard. It's painful. Martin Luther King Jr., as you know, you talked about, right? Remaining awake through a great revolution. Because my man, what's his name, went up the hill and 20 years later came down. Rip Van Winkle, what's his name? Whatever his name was. Was it Rip Van Winkle? Might have been. Yeah. Goes up the hill and he says, now the important thing is when it came down, there was a new, administration in power. So King said the most important thing about, power had changed when he was asleep. And so we talk about being woke. Woke up this morning with my mind stayed on Jesus. Now someone say, woke up this morning with my mind.
I'm a Baptist voice.
Stayed on freedom. They adopted that. See, y'all Negroes wasn't mad when they adopted the religious songs into the secular when it came to social justice. Why you mad when Ron Isley do it? Shout, you're gonna make you shout. Pentecostal beat. I'm digressing. I'm just trying to drop little nuggets on you on the way. This ain't even about the major thing. I'm just trying to let you know. Think about what you be doing. So anyway, so the thing is that woke is a state of consciousness, to be aware of the need to engage in systemic resistance. Now, I'm down for woke and I'm down for justice. But for me, cancel culture is white supremacy on the slide. Black folk ain't never believed in no darn notion called zero tolerance, because we know that's often used against us. Well, we're putting a little Shaniqua out because we have a zero tolerance policy and she messed up. They ain't use that against white folk. Yeah. Most zero tolerance is used against Black people. We have a zero tolerance for any marijuana at all, and that roach clip constitutes an offense to the law, and therefore we're putting your Black behind in jail. What do you think Mike Bloomberg was trying to, it was basically zero tolerance. And what did they call it? Stop and frisk.
Yeah.
You know, we didn't find what we were looking for. You didn't have a refrigerator under your coat as we thought you might have had, because you black people do amazing things. We thought there was a refrigerator you had stolen, but we did find a little marijuana, a little Mary Jane. Listening to Rick James, are you? Well, you're going to jail for 10 years, buddy. Right? Wait, stop. We can't get down with the zero tolerance culture. Zero tolerance is a right-wing invention. It is a conservative canard. First of all, they never abide by it because they give themselves plenty of chances.
Yeah.
But we the ones who buy it, right? The same way we bought, if you do the crime, you do the time. I done heard a million Negroes say that. And they parroting what white folks say, but here what white folk be doing. Your Honor, can my son have a 50th chance, please? Thank you. Oh, he's accused of rape. Oh, let him get him out in 4 months because it's going to ruin his life. Negroes are taking literally what white people don't mean literally. When white people say you do the crime, you do the time, they don't abide by that. They get the biggest lawyers they got. They get the biggest money they got to organize against their kids going to jail. But you ignorant, you silly black people take it literally. You do the crime, you do the time. I'm going to let your butt stay in jail. Ask Khalif Browder if that's the way to go. Yeah. Ask the cash bails, right? Zero tolerance is antithetical to grace, to restorative justice, to forgiveness. Cancel culture is, and I'm gonna tell you what, the two figures you wrote last about in your book would have been canceled had they been alive today. I'm telling you, they would have canceled Malcolm X. Oh my God, he's anti-woman. Look at what he said. The closest thing to a devil is a woman. Canceled! Now he changed his mind. Had he been canceled when he said that, he would have never grown. Had Malcolm X been canceled when he was in the Nation of Islam, it would have been different than him being outside the Nation of Islam. Martin Luther King Jr., I don't need to tell you why he'd have been canceled. Trust and believe. Oh yeah, you know who tried to cancel him? J. Edgar Hoover, that's who tried to cancel him. You mean you black people are down with the kind of impulse that J. Edgar Hoover embraced? Cancel culture is a cancer, because it brooks no and tolerates no mess up. The first time I mess up, you're done. Wait a minute, 30 years I've been doing the right thing. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to mess up, but can I want to mess up, I want to fess up, and I want to dress up. Sorry, I'm a Baptist preacher. Mess up, then fess up, yep, I did it, and then dress up, address the issue, stay on the sideline, and then come back in the game. Cancel culture says, oh no, you ain't coming back in the game, you're done. And let me tell you, you might think that happens when you see white folk you want to get canceled. Wait till the cancel mob comes for your black behind, right? The canceler becomes the cancelee. Cancel culture is removing an individual, not a system. Take Jimmy Fallon out, the next host could do the same thing. Address the systemic issue. And let me tell you something else. Are you trying to say Jimmy Fallon ain't never done nothing good for black people? Right? Now, here's my point. Let me give you a more concrete example. My man, Pharrell, called me up. That's my dude. God bless him in the loss of his, I think, young cousin. And he said, I got some politicians over here who want to ask your opinion. I want to hook you up with them. Cool, in Virginia. You know, he's a big Virginia supporter. He's from Virginia. They called me, hey, Doc, should we cancel and get rid of Ralph Northam, the governor of Virginia? I said, to quote the great philosopher Whitney Houston, hell to the no, right? No.
In the context of the blackface scandal with Governor Northam, yes.
Governor Northam, as a medical student, 20 years before, not now, like what did Allen Iverson say? Not the game, just practice. Not the game, just practice, right? So 20 years before, not the game, but in practice, 20 years before, he donned blackface. Was it racist? Of course. Was it problematic? You better believe it. Was it nefarious? In many ways, yes. This is not what we meant when we said we want black faces in high places. That ain't what we talk about, bro. So get it right. But here's the point. Should he have been held to account? Yes. But does he have to lose his job? No. And I'm gonna tell you what my logic was to them. And I'm gonna say it now. I said, bros and sisters, ain't nothing better than a white man who realizes you done forgave him for messing up. He gonna go out here and be Abraham Lincoln and LBJ. And what did he do? Oh my God. 10,000 felons had the restoration and of their voting rights. You know a disproportionate number of them were black.
Yeah.
He started talking about early childhood education. Then he started talking about healthcare. I'm telling you, he might have been LBJ on the Virginia scene. Because let me tell you what would have happened otherwise. The next white guy, that you kick him out, then the next white guy, because it was a guy. Sir, have you ever used blackface? Well, actually, one of them did. So let me go.
Yeah, yeah.
The third white guy. Sir, have you ever used blackface? No, I have not. Have you ever called anybody the N-word? No, I haven't. Good. And we're going to put you in office. Can you help black people? No, I'm not interested in that. Oh, well, can you do something for voting rights? Not my issue. In fact, I'm signing a bill that's going to be against it. Here's my point. Just because you ain't said the N-word, and just because you ain't dressed up in blackface, doesn't mean you for black people. And just because you dressed up in blackface and you did a racist thing, doesn't mean that if you are forgiven and acknowledge, right, you got to acknowledge your sin and so on and so forth, that you won't make a tremendous difference that is much more to us, worth much more to us than a confession of a white guy. Yeah, I messed up. Do you want the commercial or do you want the product? Hey, here's a commercial for $5 million. If you win the sweepstakes, the house, what do they used to call it when they come to your crib and give you $1 million, the sweepstakes for Reader's Digest. That's a commercial. Or do you want them knocking on your door?
Yeah.
You won. So my point is this, for black people to be obsessed with minutia and with the mere symbolic and of eviscerating and lacerating and eradicating white brothers and sisters who may mess up, like in my classes, I'm sure the same with you, Professor Joseph. White folk have made many mistakes, but I say this is a free zone here.
Yeah.
I said, so you can make mistakes. Now, I can't help you from your black classmate over here gonna light you up. I'm gonna make sure it's fair, but he might light your ass up. But here's my point. You will have the ability to make mistakes because we're all doing it. And I was joking one day, I was like with my class at Georgetown, I was like, one of my students said, I didn't come here to teach white people. I came here to get an education myself. And I said, yeah, I ain't come here to teach what. I said, oh, well, actually I did. I kind of did. I am a teacher. Okay. Oh, damn. I am. I'm teaching white people. That's my job. And sometimes my job means also challenging black students. They'll cancel your black ass for that. You ain't got there yet, Joseph. They will cancel you for challenging them. Yeah. Black students. So I'm telling you, that lever of cancel is lazy. It's a morally lazy disposition. I don't like you, boom. No, because when you have to do it the old-fashioned way, make an argument. I don't like you. You said something to hurt my feelings. Are you telling me he made me uncomfortable? I don't know. That's Jim Crow language. That's what they said about Emmett Till. Mm-hmm. So do you believe the woman who lied against him? Do you believe Tawana Broadley? You can't have a blanket believe all women. Black people ain't never said believe all black people because Negroes black. No, my cousin be lying all the damn time. That Negro full of lies, right? I ain't saying that now. That white boy was telling the truth. That Negro was lying. No, I'm not with that. My point simply is this. Cancel culture smuggles in the guise of justice an anti-democratic process. Because when you get the digital lynch mob, think about it this way. Black man in jail, arrested for raping a woman. He ain't raped her. But the guys come to the jail. He's gonna have a trial. No, he ain't. We're gonna string him up right now. But wait a minute, he's gotta go through a trial. We got him in jail. No, I don't care. So they extract him from the jail, lynch him, and then 2 weeks later discover he didn't rape the woman. Digital lynch mobs are no better. And just because it's black people doesn't mean we can't be fascist, we can't be intolerant. As I said, Martin Luther King Jr. had some of his personal life escaped into the public view, as you well know, because you just wrote the book. He would have been canceled. Malcolm X would have been canceled for varieties of reasons. The impulse to cancel is a self-righteous, harsh repudiation of justice. And let me end by saying this. Let me end with a King story, because I know you the King and Malcolm expert right now. Martin Luther King Jr. moves to Chicago. 1966, as you know. Now, 2 times King got outsmarted, maybe others, but 1961 with Laurie Pritchard, the sheriff in Albany, because my daddy's from Albany, not Albany, Albany, Georgia, right? He says, oh no, we're going to separate you Negroes up. And we're not going to put you all in one jail. You're going to be singing them songs, We Shall Overcome. It's going to be 3 of y'all in this jail, 5 of y'all in this jail. You ain't going to do it. Oh, King them got out thought right there. And then in 66, when the mayor right?
Daley.
Mayor Daley heard what was going on, he sent a crew in to clean up the darn the so-called slum apartment that Martin Luther King Jr. is moving in, because they were going to take pictures. Now this is all messed up over here. You can see that the ceiling is falling. Mayor Daley sent a crew in there. They cleaned that thing up like they were at the Waldorf Astoria. Okay, so there he was dealing with a different. The northern white man was a different kind of animal. So they're going out one day, as you know, to protest injustice. Martin Luther King Jr. with one of the homeboys, from the neighborhood. He sent his own kids home now. King said, y'all acting too crazy up in here now. Y'all disobeying me. Why? You might be Dr. King on TV, but you ain't Dr. King at home. Oh, I'm going to have to reject my nonviolent approach and whip your little black boy. So the thing is, he said, no, y'all got to go because y'all tripping. All right, already. The ghetto, the slum, is creating a different kind of mindset and a different kind of intolerance for a certain ethic of discipline with my own kids. He didn't say that in general. King walking out one day and a white boy spits on the guy he's walking with. Now that dude had not committed himself to nonviolence. He's about to wail, haul off, and whip my man's butt. Dr. King said, no, now hold it now. He said, let me get this right. Every day, you paying 3 times the rent you supposed to pay. You ain't got no heat. The pipes are frozen. You're living in squalor, and you don't protest. But you mad at a white boy spitting on you. He said, think about it. And that to me is cancel culture. Cancel culture is being mad at somebody spitting on you. Nigga, blackface. I'm not saying it's not real. I'm not saying it's not serious. I'm not saying it's not injurious. What's the system? Do you want to kick the white boy's butt who spit on you? Or do you want to make a system where white supremacy and white condescension and white access to hurt the vulnerable bodies of Black people is challenged? So for me, that to me is a symbolic articulation of injustice versus a systemic grappling with the problems at hand. So to me, cancel culture is cancerous. And look, as I said in my talk, I was there when they canceled Whitney Houston. She too white. She don't even sing right. She ain't even Black. And then they discovered, Whitney with Bobby Brown. What? Damn, that's blacker than, I can't be that Black. No, please. Right?
Dr. Dyson, with the time we have left,
I didn't want to go off on that.
I want to ask some questions. These are attendee questions. There's 2.
I'll be shorter.
Yeah, we can make them short. I want to get in as many as possible. One is a Black male scholar who's on the job market, says, I would love to know some ways of teaching or organizing your class to have an engaging and meaningful impact on students. And
yes.
I thought that was a good pedagogical question, especially for you. You're an award-winning teacher.
Well, you're talking to Peniel Joseph. I'm gonna let him answer. Let me do it first because his teaching is so far superior to mine. But I really want you to answer this. But let me tell you what, if it ain't interesting to you, it ain't gonna be interesting to your students. If you ain't captivated, if every lecture you're not like, damn, I can't wait to get to class. Ooh, I got some good stuff today, right? I got a lecture to give. I got some questions to ask. I got, put them in small groups and stir them up a little bit. In other words, be as creative in your pedagogical approach as you are to learning. Imagine you as a student. What do you want to see? What would you have liked to hear? How would you like your professor to organize? Now, I talk real fast. You can see that. I'll be talking fast. People are like, hey, slow down, bruh. Right? So I try to make it interesting. I try to make it provocative. I try to throw some humor up in there. I try to relate it to what they're going through now. And I also try to start with where they are. Like Jesus meeting the woman at the well. He didn't ask her, can I give you a theological disquisition upon metanoia and transformation? And he said, can I have a drink of water? Meet students where they are at the level of the bucket. If they're curious about a certain thing, start there and then draw back and show them how it's related to other stuff. So A, be interested in it yourself in order for your students to be interested. B, Organize your lectures and your presentations in a way, because you ain't got to lecture every time, right? You also want to ask questions. You want to make sure they're reading it. And 3, give assignments that test, not only their knowledge, like, in 1877, this, that, not that, but that test their connection theoretically and in a narrative sense to the information that's being presented. And then 4thly, every now and again, a couple of times a semester, bring in some other folk and, let them talk to your students to get a relief. That'll do 2 things. A, it'll show how horrible you are, because the person will just beat you down and be so great. But mostly what's going to show is that my professor is pretty good. She or he up in here doing stuff. If we get stuck with this dude, it would be horrible. No. So bring in people with other knowledge bases that help transform the tedium of it. Because even if you're great, they want to see somebody else besides you. Even when they come to see their LeBron James play, they want to see what Steph Curry's going to do too. They want to see what Kyrie Irving's going to do. So bring in another teammate or other people who can help make your point as well.
All right, thanks, Doc. This question says, white vigilantes are problematic. What about white Americans that don't see and are in denial of the problems we face as people of color? And it says, how can we address both sides without the pendulum swinging? So I guess that's about,
Yeah, the both sidisms is rough. Now, you heard my criticism of cancel culture, so I do believe in fairness, but it ain't the same. I mean, I ain't trying to act like black people ain't got no reason. I understand why black people want to cancel folk, because when we look at the Derek Chauvin trial and we see the defense lawyer just making mincemeat of George Floyd, I'd rather go, cancel him. But the thing is, you the canceler today, you the cancelee tomorrow. So the thing is, yes, we have to be more judicious, more generous, more gracious. But both sides doesn't mean that both sides are equal. That means both sides got a point, but it ain't an equally valid point, right? So both sides having a point don't mean that it's equally valid. So for me, I think how we are balanced is to understand when we approach an issue, and this is what I meant earlier when I said that some of your black students may be a little bit upset if you got white students coming in reading the books and stuff, and you come in as a black student going, I'm gonna tell you what I did back in the hood, dude. I want to hear it. But did you read page 72?
Yeah.
And what his relationship is. Now, I'm not trying to scandalously mischaracterize black students. That ain't what I'm saying. But I'm saying I have been faced with the fact that you mad at the white boy who's reading up and down and waxing your behind in class, and you just want to talk about your experience. I don't care what color, race, ethnicity, or gender you are. You have to read. One of the greatest tricks of white supremacy is to make black people think we don't have to study our own history. Every time I read a Peniel Joseph book, I'm like, damn, I didn't know that. Like, there's a lot of stuff I'd be going like, I'm 62 years old. I done read a bunch of books. I be reading this. I was like, I did not know that. You always should discover new stuff that you don't know. So bring that sense of awe and wonder to bear. So yes, you must be balanced, but it doesn't mean, right? Look, let me end by saying this. You can be fair without trying to be objective, right? Objective means I stand outside, I'm like Archimedes and I'm outside. No, you ain't. You ain't outside the flow of human history. You're implicated in it, but you can be fair. Here's my bias. Here's what I believe. Here are the set of principles I come to the table with, but I'm willing to examine them. I'm willing to have them pushed. I'm willing to challenge myself. That's why in my classes, pedagogically, I'm criticizing myself more than anybody else would. I'll be like, I don't know what I was thinking when I wrote that. God dang, what do y'all think? I was good on this, but I think I missed the boat on this one. So then you invite people. You can be fair without being, quote, balanced. So you can be half Fox News, not all Fox News.
That's great. Yeah, there's not a moral equivalency between the white again and the black next, but it doesn't mean somehow within the context of the black next, there are no shortcomings. And within the context of the white again, there are no heroes and there are no people with grace.
Beautiful way to finish. This is water, by the way. I don't want you to think I'm drinking a flavor.
Well, we have a question that said, in addition to your own recent book, and this is our book, long time coming, Our Reckoning with Race, our bestseller, what books would you recommend to be placed in the hands of a white brother or sister who's ignorant of racial history in America?
I mean, get every book that Peniel Joseph has written. I'm not lying. He wrote what's the name of your general history that you wrote up until Obama? What's the name of that book?
Oh, From Black Power to Dark Days, Bright Nights.
That's a great, if you want just to kind of quote pure history, a historical narrative, that's important. Wait to the Midnight Hour. Is that the name of the book, bro?
Yeah, Waiting Till the Midnight Hour. Yep.
I mean, if you want to read a definitive account of, the Black freedom struggle from a Black nationalist perspective, that corrected me on a lot of stuff. Because I was like, I read that, I was like, oh, okay, my bad. I'm sorry. I didn't know. I did not know. Forgive me. All right. So, and then you read his latest book on Malcolm and Martin. I mean, just a beautiful symphony of ideals marshaled under the orchestral magnificence of a broad-ranging intellect, right? So get his books. Then also get James Baldwin.
Yeah.
I tell everybody, he's Fire next time. It's 100 pages, maybe 100, 101, I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's
900, 900. I'm telling you, the book is the bomb. Also read his first novel, Go Tell It on the Mountain. That was extreme. That was my first book I read by him. It was very, very powerful, important. Read Toni Morrison's Beloved. Yeah. Read Jesmyn Ward's The Men We Reaped.
Yeah.
Read Ralph Ellison's Invisible Man and Shadow and Act. And Langston Hughes's poetry and short stories. I mean, that's just some place to begin. There's a lot more stuff that we could read. Contemporary stuff on race, Ta-Nehisi Coates' work, I think, is extremely important. Mm-hmm. Obviously, read the journalism of, Jelani Cobb. But if you want to start with a historical perspective, if you line up the Peniel Joseph corpus, it's going to take you from serious moments in the 1960s to now, but also before that with his historical overarching perspective of the last couple of centuries. It's extremely important work.
We got a great question. This will probably be the last one. Mm-hmm. From a current LBJ student who's working on housing policies and race, redlining, and pollution. So really, really interesting. And this person was asking, how can they connect those issues do you have any thoughts on environmental justice issues such as redlined neighborhoods, higher pollution levels, and poorer health outcomes? And I know you do. You're from Detroit.
Right.
Right.
And I wrote a book on Marvin Gaye.
Yeah, creating the direct
mercy me.
Exactly, creating the direct link between the historical policies like redlining and the legacy that impacts communities today. I mean, one book to check out is Race for Profit by Keeanga-Yamahtta Taylor, which was a finalist for the Pulitzer Prize, and The Color of Law by Richard Rothstein, and When Affirmative Action Was White by Ira Katz-Nelson. So those are three quick books that you can read on that. But what are your thoughts, Dr. Dyson, especially in the context of the Biden infrastructure plan and the COVID pandemic plan and sort of justice?
See, first of all, look at it this way. Y'all wanted to cancel Biden. Cancel him. He's done. Get out of here. This dude is LBJ up in this piece. Like Biden is like, oh, I ain't playing. I'm not playing with y'all. Look, I done paid 1.9 trillion. Motherfucker, call me Bernie Biden. Okay? Call me Bernie Sanders. Right? Call me Joe Sanders, dog. Because I'm AOC. You know what AOC? Be down with JRB.
Sure.
Just give him love. I mean, stop it. Y'all were, Dyson. Dyson's a sellout. Handkerchief head Negro. Look at him supporting Joe Biden. Joe Biden fooled you, didn't he? So I'm unapologetic about that. This is what I mean by cancel. You wanted to cancel him, and now you got one of the most progressive people up there, more progressive than Obama. Shoot, by far. It ain't even close. And he's trying to pass this thing, and but see, he learned from Obama. Oh, yes, I'm down with bipartisanship. Screw you. Yeah. No, I'm down with. Oh yes, I talk the talk. Yeah. Screw you. I got Kamala up in here, and if Joe Manchin don't go off the deep end and stuff, we might have to argue a little bit and adjust. But we trying to get this infrastructure bill passed.
Yeah.
This dude is passing more legislation in the because he knows midterms are coming, and he knows how
And there's 400 billion in that infrastructure for really mostly workers of color who deal with elder care and who care for people. So it's very
What about the
interesting. Yeah.
farmers? What about the
Yeah,
farmers?
well, farmers got 5 billion a down payment on what they're owed, much more. But yes,
Much more
yeah,
than Obama, who was like, farmers, what? Just bring me my milk and keep going. Oops,
yeah.
sorry.
No, no, yeah. Certainly.
So,
And the times have demanded this kind of progress in certain.
yeah, but the Times demanded a lot of stuff that leaders didn't do.
Yeah,
Yeah, the Times demanded it for Donald Trump, but he ain't do it. So
yeah.
the thing is that the leaders are not interchangeable,
No.
right? You know, it kills me when people talk, but I'm gonna get to the point. When Martin Luther King Jr. like, you know, the movement produced King, Kingdom produced movement. Try it without him. Try it without him. I'm just saying, don't act like King. Any Negro off the street could have been king. Yeah.
No, it's not. Yeah, exactly.
Stop it.
You need both.
You need both. But I'm saying, you know, and I love Fannie Lou Hamer and I love Ella Baker. Ella Baker said the movement produced Martin, Martin produced movement. Yeah, I get you. You right. But what a hell of a man that the movement produced. What a hell of a force.
Yeah.
And he generated capital. And the reason is named. Now, there's something unjust about that because there were so many other people, but don't deny the degree to which his death in the soil of America, the blood of Martin Luther King Jr. nourished the flourishing of so many propositions, ideas, and beliefs and movements that have since come into. So don't act like any Negro is every Negro. It ain't true. That's why cancel culture to me, again, is so problematic. Now, environment, of course. Think about it. Benjamin Chavis coined the term environmental racism.
Yeah.
Right? When he's working with the United Church of Christ. So we believe in that. We know we live near electric poles, trash dumps. Marvin Gaye was singing about this. Negroes, they didn't even give him credit. That's why he's got the #1 greatest album of all time, pop album. That's why.
Yeah, what's going on in 1971? And you're thinking about Mercy, Mercy Me, the college.
What they used to be. Oil and fish underground. I mean, oil and mercury underground? Huh? Negroes didn't even know Mercury. What was that? Mercury Morris? Was that the running? What are you talking about? Right? We knew we were into environmental inequality and racial injustice joined together. So yeah, we got to talk about racial injustice. We got to talk about environmental injustice because we are the victims most especially and most acutely and most readily more than other people. We're living near these dumps. We're living near these poles. We're in food deserts. That's a form of environmental racism too.
Absolutely.
And then the housing that the person talked about, of course, in terms of where we have to live, the asbestos, the rats crawling in in the walls and stuff. We live this every day. And we redlining, they're still doing it. It's not legal, but they're still steering people to certain neighborhoods. Read Kiyanga's book about the racial injustice that prevails in this country around housing. And when Obama was in office and then the Supreme Court justice, the Supreme Court finally came back by saying it's not just your intent, it's the consequence, right? Because they were arguing in housing, hey, we have no intent to be racially prejudicial against them. So if it's the consequence, too bad. No, the Supreme Court finally said, nope, it's the consequence as well. So those things are interrelated, and we have to understand that we have to always be on top of our game. The built environment, the environments that we inhabit, the ones that pollute us, that make us subject to greater forms of dis-ease. And when you talk about COVID, environmental injustice has rendered us more vulnerable because of our bodies in terms of the lethal consequences of that virus. Yes. So yes, all that stuff is extremely important and deeply and profoundly interrelated.
Well, I'm gonna leave it right there. Dr. Michael Eric Dyson, the new book. This is 7 New York Times bestsellers. This is really a profound book. I recommend this. I'm gonna teach this. Dr. Dyson has dozens of other books, but this new book, long time coming, Reckoning with Race in America, really gives us a profound context and really historical and political and personal and moral power and energy. He talks about having a hope, still having a hope. Sometimes it's a hope that is a faltering hope, right? But it's a hope, right? And you also talk about in this, there's a great phrase that Dr. Dyson uses, fugitive democracy. And I think the fugitive democracy he's talking about is not just from the 18th century and the 19th century and the folks who were maroon societies, But we have fugitive democracies right here in the United States now. People who are interested in multiracial, multicultural justice, people who are speaking on behalf of Asian American, Pacific Islander, Indigenous, Black, queer, trans, white. We have fugitive democracies. And I think when we think about the Center for the Study of Race and Democracy, I love that term, fugitive democracy, and how we are building something that's very, very subversive, not subversive to the dreams of King and Ida B. Wells, but subversive to the way in which we practice our democracy instead of really living up to the ideal with an L of American democracy. So I think the reason why this book, I've never, Dr. Dyson has written dozens of books. I've never seen a book of his, and this happened during the pandemic, hit quite as hard as this book. And he's written about Jay-Z, Tupac, he's written about Nas. This book has been a New York Times bestseller. There was a big ad in Times Square on Broadway with this book, Long Time Reckoning. He was on James Corden, karaoke. He was on all this media, morning shows, national media, because I think this book, Trevor Noah, so many people have read this book and said, you know what? I think this is the best book that has come out during this period on this time, because Dr. Dyson has placed this in such a profound historical and political context, but also a moral context of all these people we've lost recently, but still gives us hope and some optimism in terms of what we can do moving forward in the future. So I salute you. You are brilliant. You're inspiring. You inspire me continually in terms of how you've continued to be so consistent and constant in terms of the work and in terms of being on the side of justice for all people. Yes, for Black people, but for all people. So I appreciate you. I'm thrilled that you did this. And I just can't thank you. I can't thank you enough.
Thank you so very much, man. And thank all of you out there who helped make this a national bestseller on the USA Today and others. But I'm deeply grateful for this opportunity, for this brilliant young man to consistently do the kind of high quality work that he does, and to find time to engage others and read them is truly remarkable. And if you knew the Academy, how rare and astonishing that is. God bless you, my friend, and thank you for this tremendous opportunity. And Sister Emily, thank you as well.
Thank you, everyone. We have much more in store. Just, our website is lbj.csrd.edu. Thank you, Emily Dunkley, our program administrator. Thank you again, Dr. Michael Eric Dyson. Thank you to all the supporters of the William C. Powers Speaker Series, Jeannie and Mickey Klein, the CSRD Advisory Board. Thank you to Dean David Springer, Victoria Yu, everybody who's part of the LBJ family. Thank you to the Department of History, Courtney Miador, Dr. Dinah Ramey Berry, just everyone who's really been supportive of the work we're doing and that we're going to continue to do. I'm like Dr. Dyson, I am an optimist. I'm an old Christian boy, Black Baptist Church, New Bethel Baptist Church, Southside Jamaica, Queens. So I find real hope. We find hope. I'm a prisoner of hope. I'm a captive of hope. So thank you so much, everyone who continues to support the work we do. Thank you, Dr. Dyson, again, and thank you, Emma.
Thank you, Professor.